Right now, somewhere in this country, there is a landfill holding a banana peel that has been sitting there for over a year, and next to it, an aluminum can that will still be there in 80 years, and buried underneath both of them, a glass bottle that may never fully break down. When you throw something away, it does not disappear. It just goes somewhere you can no longer see it. This video explains what actually happens to trash after the truck picks it up, and how long it really stays. Most people assume the garbage truck is the end of the story. The bin goes to the curb, gets emptied, and the problem is solved. But that is just the beginning of a journey that can last anywhere from a few months to over 1,000,000 years. In the United States, the average person generates about 4.9 pounds of trash per day. A significant portion of that ends up in a municipal solid waste landfill. The truck does not always go directly there. Large collection routes typically bring waste to a transfer station first, a facility where trash from multiple collection vehicles is consolidated into larger transfer trailers for the longer haul to the landfill itself. It is a logistics step most people never think about. The landfill it arrives at is not a dump, not in the modern sense. A modern sanitary landfill is an engineered facility built to contain waste and manage what it produces. The site is excavated and lined with layers of compacted clay and synthetic liner material, typically a thick polyethylene sheet, designed to prevent liquids from migrating into surrounding soil and groundwater. Pipes are installed at the base to collect any liquid that accumulates. The site is divided into cells, and waste is deposited into one cell at a time, compacted by heavy machinery, and covered with a layer of soil at the end of each operating day. That daily cover limits odors, discourages pests, and controls blowing debris. When a cell reaches capacity, it is sealed. When the entire landfill reaches capacity, the facility is capped, typically with another layer of clay and synthetic material, to limit rainwater from entering. Then the long wait begins. Here is the detail that changes everything about how decomposition works in a landfill, and it is counterintuitive. The design features that make a modern landfill safe are the same features that dramatically slow down the breakdown of everything inside it. Decomposition, the biological kind, where bacteria and other microorganisms break organic material into simpler compounds, requires moisture and oxygen. Landfills are engineered to keep moisture out, and once waste is buried and compacted, oxygen is essentially gone. What you are left with is an anaerobic environment. No oxygen, limited moisture, and very cold temperatures deep in the waste mass. Scientists and engineers sometimes call conventional sanitary landfills dry tombs. The term is accurate. Material that would decompose in weeks or months under normal outdoor conditions can persist for decades in that environment. Archaeologists excavating old landfill sites have recovered 25-year-old newspapers still readable, hot dogs still recognizable, and produce that had barely changed in appearance. The landfill did not break those things down. It preserved them. This is the central reality of landfill decomposition. The question is not just what the material is made of, it is what environment it ends up in. A banana peel in a compost pile might break down in 3 to 4 weeks. That same banana peel in a landfill can take 2 years or longer. The material did not change. The conditions did. Despite those limiting conditions, decomposition does happen in landfills. It just happens on a very different timescale, and it moves through distinct phases. In the first phase, fresh waste still contains trapped air. Aerobic bacteria, the kind that need oxygen, get to work immediately, breaking down organic material and generating heat. This phase is brief, usually lasting only a few days to a week or so, until the available oxygen is consumed. Once oxygen is gone, a second population of bacteria takes over. These are anaerobic organisms, and they work more slowly. They convert the remaining organic compounds into organic acids, primarily acetic, lactic, and formic acids, along with hydrogen and carbon dioxide. The buildup of those acids drops the pH inside the waste mass significantly, sometimes below 5. That high acidity actually inhibits further microbial activity, temporarily slowing things down further. In the third phase, a specialized group of microorganisms called methanogens begin to establish themselves. These organisms consume the organic acids and produce methane gas as a byproduct. The pH gradually rises back toward neutral, and gas production increases steadily. This phase can last decades in a conventional landfill. The landfill gas produced during this period is roughly 50% methane and 45 to 50% carbon dioxide, with small amounts of other compounds. The fourth and final phase is stabilization. Organic material has been largely consumed, gas production slows and eventually ceases, and the waste mass becomes relatively inert. How long it takes to reach that point depends entirely on what was buried and under what conditions. For a conventional dry tomb landfill, stabilization can take 30 to 100 years for the organic fraction, and that is just the organic fraction. When a landfill reaches capacity and is capped, the obligation does not end. The EPA requires post-closure care for a minimum of 30 years, though the actual environmental monitoring period often extends much longer than that. During that time, the facility continues collecting and treating leachate, monitoring groundwater through a network of surrounding wells, and maintaining the gas collection infrastructure. The concern is the liner. No liner system lasts forever. Over decades and centuries, liner materials degrade, and the potential for leachate to reach surrounding soil and groundwater increases. It is a recognized limitation of the technology. The landfill is designed to contain waste for as long as the engineering holds, which is measured in decades, not in the centuries or millennia that the materials inside will persist. The closed landfill itself eventually becomes something else. Many former landfill sites in the United States have been converted into parks, golf courses, or open recreational space. The material beneath the surface continues its slow process. Gas wells sometimes continue operating for years, and monitoring wells remain in the ground. The transformation from active facility to closed site to park to just land is a slow one that happens over generations. The timeline on your trash is not something most people ever think about when they tie off the bag and take it to the curb, but the numbers are not abstract. The plastic bottle you recycled last week would have taken 450 years in a landfill. The aluminum cans you recycled instead of throwing away would have taken close to a century. The glass jars you put in the recycling bin would have been there in some form, longer than any structure humans have ever built. The landfill is an engineering solution to a real problem, and modern facilities are substantially more sophisticated than the open dumps they replaced. But understanding the timeline of what goes inside them is the starting point for thinking clearly about what we choose to throw away and what we choose to recycle, reduce, or find a different path for. The material does not disappear, it just waits. If you want to understand more about how the systems around you actually work, subscribe and turn on notifications. We make videos about logistics and systems every week.